You stumble out of the popina, a small, smoky tavern squeezed between the tall, rickety insula of Rome's bustling Subura district. Your head feels like it's spinning in circles, buzzing loudly from way too much Falernian wine, a strong and sweet drink straight from the sunny vineyards down in Campania. It's the year 50 BCE, and the whole city of Rome seems like it's holding its breath, waiting for something big and scary. Julius Caesar's name pops up in every conversation, his growing power hanging over the Republic like a dark storm cloud, ready to burst. You're just Lucius, an ordinary guy, a scribe who makes a living by carefully copying legal papers and contracts in the busy forum. You're not starving poor, the kind who lines up for the free grain handout from the government. But you're not rolling in riches either. No fancy house with colorful wall paintings or a garden. Your home is a tight, stuffy apartment on the third floor of one of those crowded insula where the rent eats up half your earnings and the stairs feel like climbing a mountain every day. The taste of that wine still sticks to your tongue, warm and heavy like a blanket, reminding you of the fun you had tonight and maybe hinting at the trouble waiting for you at home. You lean against the rough, scratchy brick wall for a moment, letting the cool night air slap your face like a wake-up call from a grumpy boss. The streets of the Subura spread out in front of you like a confusing maze of dark, twisting alleys, full of the city's hidden late-night life and energy. Oil lamps flicker and glow in windows way up high, throwing long, dancing shadows that look like sneaky ghosts from old campfire stories. You can hear the distant rumble and clatter of carts rolling along. These are the big, heavy wagons that are only allowed into the city after dark, hauling all sorts of goods like wine barrels, grain sacks, and exotic spices from the busy ports down at Ostia. Their wooden wheels grind and scrape against the uneven cobblestones, making a noise as loud and annoying as a tired slave grumbling about his workload. The air around you is thick with all kinds of smells mixing together. The sharp, sour stink of urine coming from the fuller's big vats where they clean and dye cloth nearby. The warm, smoky aroma of chestnuts roasting over a street vendor's open fire, and the damp, slightly fishy scent of the Tiber River's waters, blending with the light fog that's rolling in from the water. You pull your simple wool tunic tighter around your shoulders. It's not really cold out, but all that wine has left you feeling hot and flushed one minute, then a bit chilly the next. Just one more cup, you whisper to yourself, remembering the tavern keeper's wide, toothy grin as he filled your cup for what felt like the 10th time. But now a little wave of regret starts washing over you. Why on earth did you stay so long, chatting and laughing with your friends? Your wife, Claudia, is probably back home right now, waiting up for you. Her face all creased with worry and a touch of anger, her arms folded tight across her chest as she paces back and forth in your small living space. You begin walking down the Via Suburana, the main road cutting through the Subura, still lively even at this late hour with people coming and going. Your sandals make a slapping sound against the bumpy stones, and each step sends a little jolt right up through your legs and into your wine-fogged head, making it throb just a bit more. Earlier this evening, everything seemed so perfect and exciting. You'd wandered into that popina right as the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of deep purple over the tall Capitoline Hill. The place was jammed full of people just like you, everyday Romans from the middle class, bakers wiping flour from their hands, shopkeepers counting their day's coins, low-level government clerks looking to relax after hours of paperwork. It wasn't anything like those fancy convivia that the rich folks throw in their huge villas up on the Palatine Hill, where important guests lounge around on soft, cushioned couches arranged by how high up the social ladder you are, sipping the finest wines and pretending they're part of some wild Greek god's party. Those upper-class types worship Bacchus, that's Dionysus, if you're talking Greek, with secret, crazy rites that got completely banned about 100 years ago. Way back in 1860 BCE, the Senate stepped in hard, terrified that those Bacchic gatherings were destroying Rome's good old-fashioned values and morals. They claimed the cults were full of wild orgies, shady murders, and even plots to overthrow the government. Thousands of people ended up arrested, thrown in jail, or executed, and the whole ban was carved into big bronze tablets so everyone could see and remember. But even now, you've caught whispers in the taverns and markets. Those forbidden rites are still going on somewhere, hidden away in shadowy spots, luring in anyone who's feeling brave or just plain foolish enough to seek them out. Your own popina tonight was much more down to earth, louder, and full of real, everyday chaos. You found a spot on a wobbly wooden bench, not some luxurious couch like the senators use, surrounded by the noisy clatter of dice games, the sharp shouts of people placing bets, and the kind of rude jokes that make everyone burst out laughing about politicians and their fancy lives. The wine arrived in rough, chipped clay cups, mixed with water just like tradition says. 3 parts plain, water to 1 part wine, because drinking it straight and strong is something only uncivilized barbarians like the Thracians do, guzzling it down until they're ready to fight anyone in sight. Tonight's choice was a hearty Olban wine, not as expensive or famous as the top-shelf Falernian, but solid and warming enough to chase away the day's tiredness from your bones. You washed it down with simple, everyday food to try and keep things balanced. Chunks of sharp pecorino cheese brought in from the rolling countryside hills, its tangy flavor cutting right through the wine's thick, bitter notes. Handfuls of briny, salty olives picked from the groves near Ostia's seaside, their saltiness meant to soak up the alcohol like a dry sponge. And pieces of crusty, fresh-baked bread dipped in golden olive oil, sprinkled with fresh rosemary leaves bought cheap from the bustling market stalls. Stuff like this keeps your body's humors in check, your friend Gaius had mumbled through a mouthful, waving around a big piece of cheese like he was quoting from some famous Greek doctor, like Hippocrates. You all laughed it off at the time, but now as you wobble and sway along the dark street, you realize it didn't help much at all. The whole world feels like it's tilting and rocking, like you're on a boat caught in a rough sea storm. A sudden, sharp shout pulls you right out of your fuzzy thoughts. Just up ahead, a rough group of legionaries, hardened soldiers, fresh back from Julius Caesar's tough campaigns up in Gaul. Their arms covered in old battle scars and decorated with shiny torques, they probably looted from defeated enemies, come tumbling and laughing out of another nearby popina. Their voices boom and echo like a clap of thunder rolling through the night. One of them sways drunkenly right into your path, his hot breath reeking of cheap pasca, that sour mix of vinegar and water that soldiers swig to keep their energy up during long marches. "Get out of the way, you scribbling fool," he growls at you, but his eyes are all glassy and unfocused, like he's seeing double from his own drinking. You quickly step to the side, your heart pounding hard in your chest like a war drum. Nighttime in Rome is no place to let your guard down, especially here in the Subura, famous for its dangers. There are sneaky thieves with knives sharper than a clever lawyer's words, gangs of tough guys who fight for rival politicians, like Clodius or Milo, turning quiet alleys into bloody brawls, and even the gross risk of someone emptying a full chamber pot from a high window right onto your head. You've heard the famous poet Juvenal rant about death raining down from above, and you sure don't want to find out if he's exaggerating. You hug close to the wall, steering clear of the street's central gutter, where dirty sewage slowly flows toward the massive Cloaca Maxima, Rome's ancient underground drain system. As you pass by a dimly lit brothel, its swinging red lamp looks like a teasing wink from the goddess Venus herself. Soft giggles and the gentle twang of a lyre float out from inside, tempting you for just a moment. But then Claudia's face pops into your mind again, her quiet, disappointed sigh from the last time you stumbled home late, and you shake it off, keeping your feet moving forward. Your head feels heavy and cloudy from the wine, but you can't stop your mind from wandering to the bigger changes happening all around Rome. Back in your grandfather's time, Romans prided themselves on being tough and sober, sticking to the old virtues. Men like the famous Cato the Elder would drink simple mulsum, that's just wine lightly sweetened with a bit of honey, to honor the gods, not to get drunk wildly drunk and forget their duties. They valued hard work, discipline, and following the traditional rules that made Rome strong. But now, with piles of wealth pouring in from all the conquests and wars, that old way of life is fading, and a love for pleasure and excess is taking over like weeds choking a garden. You notice it everywhere in the daily markets. Strange spices shipped from far-off lands beyond Egypt, shimmering silks from mysterious places way past the Parthian borders, and fancy wines brought in from every sunny corner of the Mediterranean Sea. Back at the tavern earlier, the conversation turned to this very shift, and old Marcus, the guy who loves spinning yarns in exchange for a free drink or two, brought up the story of Enkidu from that ancient Mesopotamian epic, the Tale of Gilgamesh. You've copied parts of it yourself for wealthy clients who collect old scrolls. Enkidu was a wild, untamed man living like an animal, but then he drinks 7 big jugs of beer and suddenly becomes civilized. Yet he loses his close bond with nature and the beasts. He rejected it at first, Marcus had said with a dramatic pause, claiming it dulled his fierce spirit and made him weak. But once he tasted it, there was no turning back to his old ways. You feel a bit like that Enkidu right now, weaving and dodging through the shadowy streets, the wine pulling you deeper into Rome's growing chaos, and making you question if the city's losing its own wild, free republican soul in the process. You finally reach the edge of the Forum Boreum, the big cattle market where cows and oxen low softly in their wooden pens, and the air smells strongly of fresh hay mixed with the muddy scent of the nearby river. You pause for a breather by the round temple of Hercules Victor, its smooth columns shining softly under the bright moonlight like watchful guards. This spot is one of your favorites. It's a bit quieter here, away from the main crowds, a good place to sit and think about life when things get overwhelming. Your daily routine as a middle-class Roman is pretty straightforward and predictable, nothing glamorous. You wake up at the crack of dawn to the noisy crowing of roosters echoing through the streets, grab a quick breakfast of plain poles. That's just basic grain porridge, with a small splash of cheap, watered-down wine to start the day. Then it's off to the bustling forum, where you spend hours hunched over smooth wax tablets, carefully transcribing important contracts for grain deliveries from the provinces or land sales between wealthy farmers, all while impatient merchants dictate their terms and hurry you along. Lunch is always simple and frugal, a hunk of bread, a slice of cheese, maybe a couple of ripe figs picked up cheap from a street seller, eaten right on the wide steps of the Grand Basilica Aemilia, while you watch lawyers argue cases and senators plot their next moves amid the noisy crowd. The afternoons bring even more scribbling work, perhaps a quick stop at the public baths to soak in the hot steam, scrub off the day's grime, and catch up on the latest gossip from friends and strangers alike. And nights like this one, they're supposed to be your time to unwind and relax, but they often end up biting you back with pounding headaches, lighter coin purses from all the rounds you bought, and Claudia's worried looks when you finally make it home. Out of nowhere, you spot a quick flicker of movement in a dark alley nearby, a shadowy figure lurking just out of the lamplight, moving stealthily like a cat hunting mice. Your stomach tightens up in a knot. You've heard too many scary stories about scribes like you getting robbed for their valuable wax tablets or even stabbed over a handful of coins. You pick up your pace, heading toward the brighter, busier Via Sacra, where hired torchbearers light the paths for wealthier citizens making their way home safely. Being alone in the quiet night like this makes your thoughts run wild and deep. You start pondering those silly old legends about vomiting, tales that say Romans have special rooms called vomitoria where they puke up their feast just to eat more. But Gaius set everyone straight back at the tavern, laughing as he explained. Those vomitoria are nothing but the wide exits in amphitheaters, named because they spew out huge crowds after the games. Throwing up to keep gorging? That's just a fancy excuse for our own greed and lack of self-control. You let out a soft burp, tasting the salty olives all over again, and silently swear to yourself that you'll cut back on the drinking, starting first thing tomorrow morning, of course. The mighty Palatine Hill rises up ahead, its grand, luxurious houses perched high above, staring down at the lower city like judgmental gods from Mount Olympus. For a brief moment, you let your imagination wander. What if you'd somehow climbed the social ladder a bit higher? Maybe gotten yourself invited to one of those real, upscale convivia? You picture yourself reclining lazily on a soft, embroidered couch, your position in the room showing exactly how important you are, sitting close to the host for the choicest, most expensive wines, or stuck farther away with the cheaper stuff if you're lower on the guest list. You'd sip from elegant silver goblets, tasting rare vintages like the light and crisp satine from the Latium region, or the bold, fiery Massic that burns warmly going down. The food would be exotic and over the top. Delicate peacock tongues roasted with herbs, or little dormice fattened up on nuts and honey, all while silent slaves fan you gently with colorful peacock feathers to keep the summer heat at bay. But those daydreams quickly turn sour in your mind. That upper-class world is full of hidden troubles and dangers. The Senate's endless, bitter feuds over power, rival factions spilling blood right in the open forum, and a general sense of decay rotting away at Rome's core. No, you tell yourself, your own modest, everyday life is better and safer, even if the wine sometimes clouds your judgment and makes you forget that simple truth for a while. As you stand there staring up at your insula's flickering lamp, the night's grip tightens around you like a heavy cloak. The wine's warmth still courses through your veins, but a chill runs down your spine, not from the air, but from the weight of your thoughts. Rome's a city of marvels. Marble temples, roaring crowds at the Circus Maximus, the endless chatter of the Forum. But it's also a city of shadows, where every corner hides a story, a danger, or a temptation. You take a deep breath, the smell of smoke and damp stone filling your lungs, and start the slow climb up the creaky stairs. Each step groans under your weight, as if the building itself is scolding you for staying out so late. Your head's still spinning, the Alban wine making the world sway like a reed in the Tiber's current. You grip the splintered wooden railing, muttering a half-hearted prayer to Janus, god of doorways, to guide you safely to your door without tumbling backward. Halfway up, you pause, catching your breath. The insula's walls are thin, and you hear snippets of life spilling out. A baby's wail, a couple arguing over money, the soft hum of someone singing a lullaby. It's a reminder that you're not alone in this sprawling city, even if it feels that way in the dark. You think back to the tavern, to the stories swapped over those chipped cups. Old Marcus, with his scruffy beard and endless tales, had leaned in close, his voice dropping low as he spoke of the Bacchic cults. "They're still out there, Lucius," he'd whispered, eyes gleaming, "hidden in cellars in the woods outside the city. They dance for Bacchus, drink till they see gods, and swear oaths that'd make the Senate quake." You'd laughed it off, blaming the wine, but now in the quiet, you wonder. Could you have stumbled into one of those secret gatherings tonight? Would you have joined, letting the wine and the drums pull you into their wild, forbidden world? The thought sends a shiver through you, half thrill, half fear. You shake it off and keep climbing, your sandals scuffing the worn steps. At the top, you fumble with your key, the bronze cold against your clumsy fingers. The door creaks open, revealing your small apartment, a single room with a straw mattress, a wobbly table, and a clay lamp casting a soft glow. Claudia's there, sitting by the table, her dark hair loose, her eyes fixed on you. "Lucius," she says, her voice sharp but soft, like a knife wrapped in wool. "Out drinking again?" You mumble an apology, words tripping over each other, and collapse onto a stool. She sighs, pushing a bowl of water toward you. "Drink this, not more wine," she says, and you obey, the cool water cutting through the fog in your head. You want to explain the laughter, the stories, the pull of the popina, but the words feel heavy, stuck like mud in your throat. Instead, you sit in silence, the lamp's flame dancing between you. Claudia starts talking, her voice low, about her day. Weaving cloth for a neighbor, bartering for bread at the market, dodging a pushy merchant who tried to overcharge her for oil. Her words ground you, pulling you back from the wine-soaked haze. You think about your own day, so different yet so similar. Mornings in the Forum, scratching out contracts under the watchful statues of Romulus and the old kings. The air thick with the shouts of vendors and the pleas of petitioners. Midday at the baths, where you scrub off ink stains and listen to gossip about senators' scandals or Caesar's latest conquests. Evenings like this, meant for rest, but too often spent chasing fleeting joys in smoky taverns. You realize how much you rely on Claudia's steady presence, her quiet strength holding your little world together while Rome's grand one seems to crumble. Your thoughts drift to the city's future. Everyone's talking about Caesar, his victories in Gaul, his golden triumphs, his enemies sharpening their knives in the Senate. The Republic's old ways are fading, like a fresco chipped by time. You remember your father's stories of a simpler Rome, where men drank to honor the gods, not to drown their fears. Now, with wealth flooding in from every corner of the world, the city's changing. The markets overflow with treasures, pepper from India, amber from the far north, wines from Crete and Gaul. But with the riches come new troubles, greed, betrayal, blood in the streets. You saw it today in the forum, two men brawling over a debt, their shouts drawing a crowd until the idols broke it up. You wonder if Rome's excess, the same excess that led you to that popina, is what's pulling the city apart. A noise outside snaps you back, a dog barking, sharp and insistent. You glance at Claudia, who's watching you with those knowing eyes. "You're thinking too much," she says, a small smile tugging at her lips. "The wine does that." You laugh, a rough sound, and nod. She's right. The Alban's still working its magic, making every worry feel bigger, every shadow darker. You think of Enkidu again, that wild man from Marcus's tale. After drinking those 7 jugs of beer, he became human but lost something. His freedom, his connection to the wild. You feel that loss too, not of nature but of clarity. The wine makes you bold, makes you dream of bigger things, a better job, a nod from a senator, maybe a life beyond this insula. But it also chains you to nights like this, stumbling home with an empty purse and a heavy heart. You stand swaying slightly and move to the window. The Subura's still alive below, its sounds drifting up, a drunk singing off-key, the clatter of a late cart, a woman's laughter from a nearby tenement. You lean out, the cool air brushing your face, and spot the moon hanging low over the Palatine. Those grand houses up there, with their marble columns and private gardens, feel like another world. You imagine yourself at one of their feasts, a proper convivium, reclining on a silk-cushioned couch, your place carefully chosen to show your rank. You'd sip Satine wine, light and refreshing, or Massic, bold and warm, from a silver cup etched with vines. The food would be wild, roasted peacock, stuffed dormice, oysters from the coast, served by silent slaves who move like shadows. But that life's not yours. It's a world of plots and daggers, where ambition can end with a knife in the dark. Your life, with its ink-stained fingers and Claudia's quiet love, is enough. Or so you tell yourself, as the wine whispers otherwise. The lamp's dim light flickers across the room, casting shadows that twist and sway like dancers at a forbidden Bacchic rite. You stand by the window, the cool night air brushing your face, carrying the distant hum of Rome's restless heart. The Subura below pulses with life, a chaotic symphony of drunken songs, creaking cartwheels, and the occasional shout of a night watchman calling out curfew breakers. Your head still throbs from the Alban wine, its warmth lingering in your chest, making your thoughts drift like leaves on the Tiber. You turn back to Claudia, who's now folding a worn wool blanket, her hands moving with the steady rhythm of someone used to making order out of chaos. Her eyes meet yours, and there's a question in them, unspoken but heavy. Will you keep stumbling home like this, night after night, chasing fleeting joys in smoky taverns? You want to promise her better, to swear off the popina's pull, but the words stick in your throat, drowned by the wine's soft, seductive haze. You sit back on the stool, the wood creaking under you, and take another sip of the water Claudia pushed your way. It's cold, sharp, a stark contrast to the wine's syrupy embrace. The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in with the weight of your thoughts. You think of the tavern again, the laughter, the stories, the way the Alban made everyone's tongues looser, their dreams bigger. Old Marcus had spun another tale, one you hadn't thought of until now, about the old days when Rome was just a cluster of huts on the Palatine, before the marble temples and golden statues. He spoke of Romulus, the city's founder, raising a cup of mulsum to the gods, a simple mix of wine and honey to honor Jupiter and Mars. Back then, Marcus had said, his voice rough with age and drink, Romans drank to live, not to forget. You'd nodded, half listening, but now his words echo in your mind. You're forgetting something too, aren't you? Not just your coin purse left lighter by the tavern keeper's grin, but something deeper, a piece of yourself lost in the haze of these late nights. The thought pulls you back to the city outside. You lean out the window again, looking down at the Subura's winding alleys. A group of young men stumbles by, their laughter loud and careless, their tunics stained with wine. You wonder if they're like you, ordinary Romans caught between the old ways and the new. The Republic's changing, everyone can feel it. Julius Caesar's name is everywhere, painted on walls, whispered in markets, shouted in the forum. His victories in Gaul bring gold and glory, but also unrest, like ripples spreading across a still pond. You've seen it in your work, copying contracts for merchants who grumble about new taxes, or land deeds for senators grabbing up estates from conquered lands. The wealth flows in, but so does trouble. Fights in the streets, politicians like Clodius and Milo stirring up gangs, blood staining the cobblestones where you walk each day. You think of the graffiti you saw earlier, scrawled in red paint near the tavern. Caesar for king. The word king sends a chill through you. Romans hate kings, have since they drove out Tarquin centuries ago. Yet the whispers grow louder, and with them, the sense that Rome's old virtues, duty, honor, restraint, are slipping away like sand through your fingers. You turn from the window, your gaze falling on a small clay statue of Vesta on the table, goddess of the hearth, her flame a tiny echo of the one burning in her temple by the forum. Claudia lights it every morning, a quiet ritual to keep your home safe. You think of her steadiness, how she holds your life together while you chase fleeting thrills. She's still moving about, tidying up, her hands never idle. You want to tell her about the tavern, about Marcus's stories, about the fear that Rome's changing too fast. Instead, you ask, how was the market today? It's a weak attempt to connect, but she takes it, her face softening. She tells you about a weaver who cheated her on a bolt of cloth, a fishmonger who swore his catch was fresh, but smelled like the Cloaca Maxima, and a child who ran through the stalls, nearly knocking over her basket. Her voice is calm, familiar, pulling you back from the wine's wild edges. You laugh at her story of the fishmonger, and for a moment the room feels warm, safe, a haven from the city's chaos. But the wine won't let you rest. Your mind drifts to another story Marcus told, not about Rome, but about a far-off land, Sumer, where beer was brewed by women and sipped through reeds because it was thick as porridge. He'd laughed, saying, "We're not so different, are we? Drinking to feel alive, to forget the grind." You think of Enkidu again, that wild man from the Gilgamesh tale, who drank 7 jugs of beer and became human, only to lose his bond with the wild. You feel that pull now, the wine making you bold, reckless, but also trapping you in a cycle of blurry nights and morning regrets. You wonder if Rome's like that, civilized by wealth and wine, but losing its fierce, free spirit. The thought makes you uneasy, like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath you. A sudden clatter outside breaks your thoughts. You peer out, seeing a cart overturned in the street, its driver cursing as apples roll across the cobblestones. A small crowd gathers, some helping, others grabbing the fruit and slipping away. It's Rome in miniature, generous and greedy all at once. You think of your own greed, not for gold but for escape, for the fleeting rush of the popina. You've spent too many nights there, buying rounds for friends, laughing at Marcus's tales, ignoring the coin slipping away. You think of Claudia's basket, how she haggles for every denarius, while you toss them to the tavern keeper without a thought. Guilt twists in your gut, sharper than the wine's aftertaste. You move to the mattress, the straw crunching under you, and lie down, staring at the cracked ceiling. Claudia joins you, her warmth a quiet comfort. You think of your days, so ordinary yet so full. Mornings in the forum, surrounded by the chatter of merchants and the drone of orders, your stylists scratching out their deals. Afternoons at the baths, where steam and gossip mix, stories of senators' affairs or gladiators' victories floating like the mist. Evenings when you should be here, with Claudia, but too often find yourself elsewhere, chasing the wine's false promises. You think of the future, of Rome under Caesar, or someone worse. Will it be an empire grand and terrible? Will you still be a scribe, growing old with ink-stained hands? Or will you rise, catch a senator's eye, become something more? The wine makes you dream big, but dreams fade by morning. You a quiet anchor in the storm of your thoughts. The dim light of the clay lamp flickers, throwing shadows across the cracked plaster walls of your small apartment, each one seeming to carry a story of its own. The wine's grip is loosening now, but its echoes linger, a warm haze that makes your eyelids heavy, yet keeps your mind racing. Rome's pulse beats outside, a distant hum of life that never truly sleeps. And you feel it inside you too, a restless rhythm that refuses to let you drift off. You stare up at the ceiling, its faint cracks tracing patterns like the winding streets you wandered tonight. The Subura's sounds drift up through the open window. A stray dog's bark, the creak of a cartwheel, a woman's sharp laugh cutting through the night. You wonder if you'll ever escape this cycle, these nights of wine-soaked revelry followed by mornings of regret, or if this is just what it means to live in Rome, the eternal city, where every pleasure comes with a price. You shift, the mattress rustling, and Claudia stirs, murmuring something soft and incomprehensible. You don't want to wake her, not now, not when her face is peaceful, free of the worry lines that crease it when you stumble home late. You think of her earlier words, her gentle scolding about the tavern, and guilt twists in your gut again, sharper than the Alban wine's bitter aftertaste. You've promised her before, too many times, that you'll cut back, stay home, be the husband she deserves. But the popina's pull is strong, its smoky air and raucous laughter, a siren's call you can't resist. You close your eyes trying to quiet your mind, but the night replays itself, vivid as a fresco painted on your eyelids. You see the tavern again, its low ceiling stained with soot, its benches packed with familiar faces, friends and strangers alike, all bound by the shared escape of wine and stories. You think of Gaius, your fellow scribe, his round face flushed red as he waved a chunk of pecorino cheese, preaching about balance and humors like some philosopher from the Stoa. "Eat this, Lucius," he'd said. "It soaks up the wine, keeps you steady." You'd laughed, tossing back another cup, knowing it was nonsense. The olives, the bread dipped in rosemary oil, none of it stopped the world from spinning. You think of old Marcus, the tavern's resident storyteller, his voice gravelly from years of wine and shouting over crowds. He'd leaned in close tonight, his breath sour, spinning a tale not just of Enkidu, but of Sumerian women brewing beer thick as porridge, sipped through straws to avoid the grit. "They drank to honor their gods," he'd said. "Just like us, but they knew their limits. We've forgotten ours." You'd nodded, half drunk, but now his words sting. Have you forgotten your limits too? Not just in wine, but in ambition, in loyalty, in the simple life you've built with Claudia? The thought pulls you deeper, and you imagine yourself back at the Popina earlier tonight, when the conversation turned to Rome itself. Gaius had started it, slamming his cup down, sloshing wine onto the table. "This city's changing," he'd said, "and not for the better." He spoke of Caesar, of course. Everyone does these days. His legions bring gold from Gaul, slaves from the north, stories of battles that make the crowds in the forum cheer. But with the gold comes unrest, a tension you feel in the air, like the static before a storm. You've seen it in your work, copying contracts for merchants who complain about new taxes to fund Caesar's wars, or land deeds for senators snatching up estates in conquered territories. The Republic's old ways, the ones your father taught you, duty, honor, the mos maiorum, the customs of the ancestors, are fading like the paint on a temple wall. In their place, you see greed, ambition, and a hunger for power that scares you. You remember a moment in the forum today, a fight breaking out between two men over a debt, their fists flying until the aediles dragged them apart. The crowd had watched, some cheering, some slipping away, and you'd stood there, stylus in hand, wondering if this was Rome's future. Blood and chaos where order once stood. You open your eyes, the room coming back into focus. Claudia's hand rests on your arm now. warm and steady, and you feel a pang of gratitude. She's your anchor, your Vesta, keeping the hearth of your life burning while you wander. You think of her day, the stories she told you earlier, the weaver who tried to cheat her, the fishmonger with his dubious wares, the child running wild through the market. Her life is as ordinary as yours, yet she carries it with a grace you envy. You want to tell her this, to say how much she means, but the wine makes your tongue clumsy, your thoughts tangled. Instead, you lie there, listening to the city outside, its sounds weaving into your thoughts like threads in a loom. The Subura's alive, even at this hour. You hear a flute's mournful tune, probably from a street performer hoping for a few coins from late-night stragglers. A cart rumbles by, its driver cursing as a wheel sticks in a rut. Somewhere a woman shouts, her voice sharp with anger or maybe fear. You think of the dangers you dodged tonight, the legionaries with their drunken swagger, the shadow in the alley that made your heart race. Rome's streets are a gamble after dark, a roll of the dice between safety and disaster. You've heard too many stories, scribes robbed for their tablets, men knifed for a handful of sesterces, women caught alone by gangs loyal to Clodius or Milo. The Subura's notorious, its alleys a maze where thieves and worse lurk. You remember Juvenal's words, or at least the ones Marcus quoted, about death from above, chamber pots emptied from high windows, a hazard as real as any blade. You'd laughed it off in the tavern, but now, lying here, you're glad you made it home unscathed. Your mind drifts to the bigger picture, to Rome's soul. The city's changing, and not just in the streets. You think of the Palatine, those grand houses you saw earlier, their marble gleaming under the moon. You imagine yourself there, not as a scribe, but as a guest at a convivium, one of those lavish feasts the rich throw to show off their wealth. You'd recline on a couch, silk cushions under you, your place carefully chosen to show your status, close to the host for the best wines, far off for the dregs. You'd sip Satine, light and crisp, or Massic, bold and fiery, from a silver cup etched with vines. The food would be extravagant, peacock tongues, stuffed dormice, oysters shipped from the coast, served by slaves who move like ghosts. You'd laugh with senators, trade witty banter, maybe catch the eye of someone important, a path to a better job, a better life. But the dream sours fast. That world's dangerous, full of plots and betrayals. You've heard the stories, senators poisoned at banquets, knives drawn over political slights. Your life, with its ink-stained hands and Claudia's quiet love, is safer, simpler. Yet the wine whispers of more, of ambition, of a life beyond this insula. You roll onto your side, the mattress creaking, and look at Claudia. Her face is soft in sleep, her worries smoothed away. You think of the vows you've made, to her, to yourself, to be better, to drink less, to stay home. You've broken them before, too many times, but tonight feels different. Maybe it's the wine, or maybe it's the city's pulse, beating in time with your own. You think of Marcus's stories again, not just Enkidu, but others he told. Tales of ancient Sumer, where beer was a gift from the gods, brewed by women who sang hymns as they stirred the vats. He spoke of Egypt too, where workers built pyramids on rations of beer, their drunken songs rising to the gods. You wonder if Rome's gods, Jupiter, Mars, Vesta, still listen to your prayers, or if they're distracted by the city's growing chaos. You think of the Bacchic cults, those forbidden rites Marcus whispered about. They dance till dawn, he'd said, drinking till they see visions, till Bacchus himself walks among them. You'd scoffed, but now in the quiet, you wonder what it'd be like to join them, to lose yourself in that wild, divine frenzy. Would it free you or destroy you? The thought lingers, heavy as the wine in your veins. You get up, careful not to wake Claudia, and move to the window again. The Subura's quieter now, the moon higher, its light silvering the rooftops. You see a lone figure below, a cloaked man hurrying through the shadows, his steps quick and nervous. You wonder who he is. A thief, a lover, maybe a cultist heading to one of those secret rites. The city's full of secrets, hidden in its alleys and cellars, just as it's full of dreams and dangers. You think of your own dreams, not just of convivia, but of something bigger, a life where you're more than a scribe, where your name means something. You've seen men rise in Rome, freedmen who started like you and ended up advising senators, owning villas, their names carved in stone. But the path is steep, paved with risks, betrayal, and compromises you're not sure you can make. You sit back down, the stool wobbling under you, and pour another cup of water from the clay jug. The cold liquid clears your head a bit, enough to think of tomorrow. You'll wake at dawn, the rooster's cries pulling you from sleep. You'll eat your poles, maybe with a bit of cheese if Claudia's feeling generous, and head to the forum. You'll sit under the statues of Romulus and Remus, scratching out contracts, listening to the city's heartbeat. You'll pass the Temple of Vesta, where the sacred flame burns, a reminder of the god's presence. You'll stop at the baths, maybe hear more gossip about Caesar or the Senate's latest feud. And when evening comes, you'll face the choice again, home to Claudia or back to the popina, to the wine and the stories and the fleeting escape they offer. You think of Rome's future, a city on the edge of something vast. Caesar's rise feels unstoppable, his name a drumbeat in every conversation. You've copied letters from merchants who whisper of his plans, of a new order, maybe an empire. The word scares you, empire. It's too close to king, a title Romans despise. Yet the signs are everywhere, new temples rising, paid for with Gallic gold, markets bursting with exotic goods, crowds cheering for Caesar's triumphs, while others plot in the shadows. You wonder where you'll fit in this new Rome, if you'll still be a scribe in 10 years, or if you'll find a way to rise, to carve out a bigger place for yourself and Claudia. The wine makes you bold, makes you dream of such things, but it also clouds your resolve, leaving you adrift. A noise outside, a sharp crack like wood splitting, makes you jump. You peer out, seeing a cart driver struggling with a broken wheel, his curses loud enough to wake the dead. A small crowd gathers, some offering help, others slipping away with stolen goods. It's Rome in a nutshell, generous and greedy, noble and base. You think of your own greed, not for wealth, but for escape, for the rush of the tavern. You've spent too much there, not just coin, but time, moments you could have spent with Claudia, building a life instead of chasing shadows. You vow again to change, to be better, but the vow feels fragile, like a clay cup ready to crack. The weight of that promise presses against your chest, heavy as the wine still swirling in your veins. You lie there, sprawled on the straw mattress, its rough edges digging into your back. Claudia's soft breathing beside you, a quiet reminder of what's at stake. The small clay lamp on the table flickers, its flame barely holding on, casting jagged shadows that seem to mock your resolve. Rome's endless hum seeps through the window, a blend of distant shouts, the clatter of late-night carts, and the occasional howl of a stray dog echoing through the Subura's alleys. Your head throbs, the Alban wine's aftertaste lingering like a bitter truth, and you wonder if you'll ever break free of this cycle. Nights lost to the popina's smoky haze, mornings heavy with regret in Claudia's worried eyes. You want to be the man she believes you can be, the one who stays home, who saves his coin and his strength for a better life. But the tavern's pull is strong. Its laughter and stories a lure you keep chasing, like a moth drawn to a flame that burns too bright. You shift, trying to get comfortable, but the mattress creaks in protest, and Claudia murmurs in her sleep, her hand brushing your arm. You freeze, not wanting to wake her, not wanting to face her quiet disappointment again. The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in like the worries crowding your mind. You think of the tavern once more, its warmth and chaos pulling you back into memory. You see Gaius, his round face flushed, waving that chunk of pecorino cheese like a philosopher's scroll, preaching about balance. "Eat this, Lucius," he'd slurred. "Keeps the wine from turning you into a fool." You'd laughed, tossing back another cup, knowing it was nonsense. The olives, the crusty bread dipped in rosemary oil, none of it stopped the world from spinning. None of it kept you from stumbling home with an empty purse and a heavier heart. You think of old Marcus, the tavern storyteller, his voice rough as gravel, spinning tales of ancient lands and ancient drinks. He'd spoken of Sumerian women brewing beer thick as porridge, sipped through straws to strain the grit, a gift from their gods to bring joy and order. They drank to live, he'd said, not to lose themselves. His words cut deeper now, lying here in the dark, the wine's glow fading into guilt. You think of another story Marcus told, one that stuck with you despite the haze. He spoke of Egypt, where workers built pyramids on daily rations of beer, their songs rising to the heavens as they hauled stones under the scorching sun. Beer was their bread, Marcus had said, kept them strong, kept them loyal to their pharaohs. You'd nodded, half drunk, but now you wonder if Rome's wine is your bread, your strength, or if it's something darker, a chain binding you to nights like this. You think of Enkidu again, from that Mesopotamian tale you've copied for rich clients. The wild man who drank 7 jugs of beer and became human, only to lose his bond with the wild. You feel like him, civilized by Rome's wine and wealth, but losing something vital, a spark of purpose, a clarity you can't quite name. The thought makes you restless, and you sit up, careful not to disturb Claudia, the straw rustling beneath you. You move to the window again, the cool night air a sharp contrast to the stuffy room. The Subura's quieter now, the moon high, its silver light glinting off the rooftops like a promise of something better. You see a lone figure below, a cloaked man hurrying through the shadows, his steps quick and furtive. Is he a thief, a lover, or maybe one of those Bacchic cultists Marcus whispered about, heading to a secret rite in some hidden cellar? The idea sends a shiver through you, half fear, half fascination. Marcus's tales of those cults linger in your mind, their wild dances, their wine-fueled visions of Bacchus himself walking among them. They drink till the gods speak, he'd said, his eyes gleaming with something like envy. You'd laughed it off, blaming the wine, but now you wonder what it would feel like to join them, to let go of restraint, to dance and drink until world dissolves into divine madness. Would it free you from this cycle or trap you deeper? You shake your head trying to clear the thought. The city's dangers are real enough without chasing myths. You think of the legionaries you dodged earlier, their drunken swagger, their breath reeking of pasca, that sour vinegar water soldiers drink to keep marching. You think of the shadow in the alley, the one that made your heart race, reminding you of stories about scribes robbed for their tablets or knifed for a few coins. The Subura's a maze of risks, its alleys hiding thieves, gangs, and worse. You've heard tales of Clodius's men clashing with Milo's, turning quiet streets into battlegrounds, their knives flashing in the torchlight. You remember a warning from a friend at the baths, his voice low. Stay out of the Subura after dark, Lucius. It's not just thieves, it's the gods themselves testing you. You'd laugh then, but now, safe in your room, you feel the weight of those words. You turn back to the room, your eyes falling on the small clay statue of Vesta, goddess of the hearth, her tiny flame a mirror of the one burning in her temple by the forum. Claudia lights it every morning, a quiet prayer for safety, for home. You think of her strength, how she holds your life together while you chase fleeting joys. You want to tell her everything, the tavern, the stories, the fears about Rome's future. You want to confess how the wine makes you dream of more, a better job, a nod from a senator, a life beyond this insula. But the words stay locked inside, tangled in the haze. Instead, you sit back on the stool, the wood creaking, and pour another cup of water. It's cold, grounding, a reminder of the simple things that keep you going. You think of tomorrow, another day in Rome's endless rhythm. You'll wake to the rooster's cries, eat your poles with a splash of cheap wine, and head to the forum. You'll sit under the statues of Romulus and Remus, scratching out contracts for merchants, their voices sharp with greed or desperation. You'll pass the Temple of Vesta, its sacred flame, a beacon of order in a chaotic city. You'll stop at the baths, maybe hear more gossip about Caesar's plans or the Senate's feuds. And when evening comes, You'll face the choice again, home to Claudia or back to the popina, to the wine and the stories and the escape they promise. You want to choose home, to choose her, but the wine's whispers are loud, tempting you with dreams that feel real in the moment but crumble by dawn. You think of Rome itself, a city teetering on the edge of something vast. Caesar's name is everywhere, scrawled on walls, whispered in markets, shouted in the forum. His victories in Gaul bring gold and slaves, but also unrest, a tension you feel in every contract you copy, every fight you witness. You've seen the graffiti, Caesar for king, a word that chills you. Romans hate kings, have since the days of Tarquin, yet the whispers grow louder, the idea of empire taking root. You wonder where you'll fit in this new Rome, if you'll still be a scribe in 10 years, your fingers stained with ink, or if you'll find a way to rise to make a name for yourself. The wine fuels these dreams, makes you believe you could be more, but it also clouds your resolve, leaving you adrift in its haze. A sudden noise outside, a sharp crack like a whip, makes you jump. You peer out, seeing a cart driver struggling with a broken wheel, his curses echoing through the street. A small crowd gathers, some helping, others slipping away with stolen goods, apples rolling across the cobblestones. It's Rome in miniature, generous and greedy, noble and base. You think of your own greed, not for gold, but for escape, for the rush of the tavern. You've spent too much there, coin and time, moments you could have spent with Claudia, building a life instead of chasing shadows. You think of her earlier stories, the weaver, the fishmonger, the child in the market, and you realize how much you rely on her, how her quiet strength keeps you grounded while Rome spins out of control. You lie back down, the mattress welcoming despite its roughness. Claudia's warmth is close, her breathing a soft rhythm that lulls you. You think of the gods again, Vesta's flame, Bacchus's wild call. You think of Enkidu, civilized by beer but lost to the wild. You think of Rome, civilized by wealth but losing its soul. And you think of yourself, Lucius, a scribe with ink-stained fingers, caught between the city's past and its future, between the wine's dreams and the morning's reality. You close your eyes, letting the city's sounds fade, the barking dogs, the rolling carts, the distant laughter. Tomorrow you'll face Rome again, its chaos, its beauty, its endless possibilities. For now you let sleep take you, the wine's whispers fading into dreams of a city and a life that could be more.
Mm-hmm.